A single mom comforts a crying boy, without knowing that his millionaire father was watching her. The afternoon rain in downtown Seattle was coming down, as if the sky itself had split open. Sheets of water slapped against faces, icy wind knifed through layers of clothing, and everyone hurried to find shelter. But Grace Miller kept walking, clutching her 6-month-old daughter Lily tightly to her chest. Her worn denim jacket was soaked through, the cold seeping into her bones, but she had no time to care. Lily whimpered softly, her tiny fingers clutching at her mother's shirt. Grace held her closer, whispering, "It's okay, sweetheart. Just a little longer." A muffled cry reached her ears. Grace stopped, looked up, and saw a boy, around 12, huddled under the awning of a closed shop. His messy brown hair was plastered to his forehead by the rain, his thick hoodie doing little to stop his shivering. His designer sneakers were drenched. Tears streaked down his face, mingling with the rain. Grace stepped closer, bending slightly to shield Lily as she studied the boy. "Hey, are you okay?" He shook his head, lips pale. "What's your name?" "Noah." His voice trembled. I got out of the car. I don't know my way back." Grace glanced around. No adult in sight. Balancing Lily on one arm, she shrugged off her soaked jacket and draped it over his shoulders. The wind stabbed at her back like cold knives, but she didn't hesitate. "Come here, stand close, keep warm." Across the street, inside a black Tesla with tinted windows, Ethan Walker sat frozen. He had been circling the city for nearly an hour after the school called. Noah had once again run away from the car that picked him up. He had been ready to scold the boy, but what he saw stopped every word in his throat. A young woman, plainly dressed, drenched from head to toe, holding a baby in one arm while covering Noah, a child she didn't even know, with her only protection from the rain. Ethan's chest tightened. How long had it been since he'd held his son like that? Since he'd truly seen the sadness in Noah's eyes? Grace led Noah to another awning, more sheltered from the wind. "Where are your parents, Noah?" "Dad's always at work. Mom? Mom's gone. I fought with the driver, so I got out, and then got lost." Grace bit her lip, watching him try to choke back a sob. Lily squirmed in her arms, but Grace reached into the canvas bag at her hip and pulled out a leftover chicken sandwich from lunch. "Here. It's not warm, but it's better than being hungry." Noah took it, his wet, cold hands trembling. He took a bite and murmured, "My mom never made me food." The words cut into Grace's heart. She didn't know his story, but she knew he lacked the most important thing, a warm embrace, a simple, genuine care. Ethan stepped out of the car. Each step across the freezing sidewalk felt like walking on broken glass. "Noah!" His voice was hoarse. The boy looked up, startled. Grace felt the change in him immediately. She turned and met the gaze of a man walking toward them, a face she'd seen on the covers of business magazines. You're Noah's father?" "Yes, and you are the kindest person I've ever met." Grace flushed, quickly returning the jacket to Noah. I just saw him crying, so I helped." "Please don't go," Ethan said, reaching out as if afraid she might vanish with his son. But Grace Miller still stepped back, holding Jasmine tighter. The rain mixed with her tears. "Noah, let's go home," Ethan Walker said softly, but the boy didn't move. "I don't want to go. She took care of me when I was alone. No one takes care of me like she does." Noah's words hit Ethan like a punch to the heart. His own son preferred the company of a stranger over his own father. "Ma'am," Ethan's voice softened. "I'm Ethan Walker. I owe you an apology." "An apology? For what?" Grace asked in surprise. "For being the kind of father whose son would rather be with a stranger than with him." Only the sound of rain broke the silence. Grace looked at the powerful man, now so vulnerable, then at Noah, still clutching her coat like a life raft. "Children only need to be truly seen and truly heard," she said. Ethan swallowed hard. She was right. He had failed. "What can I do to thank you?" "There's no need to thank me. Anyone would have done the same." "No, not everyone would. You gave your only coat to a stranger's child while still holding your own baby in the rain. That's extraordinary." Grace was flustered. No one had ever looked at her that way before. "I have to go. Jasmine will get sick." "At least let me drive you both home." "It's the least I can do." Grace hesitated. Rich men often wanted something in return. "No, thank you. We'll take the bus." "Please." Noah took her hand. "My dad isn't bad. He's just always sad." That innocence shook Grace's resolve. She looked at Ethan and saw real pain. "All right, but only to the bus stop." None of them knew that the meeting in the rain that day would change their lives forever. Ethan hadn't slept for 3 weeks. Every time he closed his eyes, the image of Grace standing in the rain, shielding his son, came back to him, along with the tenderness he himself had long forgotten how to show. "Dad, when will we see her again?" Noah asked again over breakfast, stirring his cereal without eating it. "Her name is Grace," Ethan corrected automatically, surprised at how clearly he remembered her name. "Will you call her?" Ethan set down his coffee cup. He had already had someone look into Grace, 24 years old, a single mother working as a waitress at a small diner. She lived in a modest apartment in Edmonds with 6-month-old Lily, had no relatives nearby, and worked from early morning until late at night just to make ends meet. "It's complicated, son." "Why?" Noah looked at him with the same eyes as his late mother. "She listened to me when I cried. You never do." That truth hurt more than any blow. Ethan knew his son was right. Ever since Claudia's death, he had buried himself in work, building his business empire, but destroying the only relationship that truly mattered, his relationship with his son. "What if I offered her a job? She could watch you in the afternoons while I'm at the office." Noah's eyes lit up. "Really? She'd be with me all the time?" "No, just a few hours a day." But as he said it, Ethan felt something stir in his chest. The thought of seeing Grace every day wasn't just convenient, it felt necessary. In Edmonds, Grace Miller carried Lily to the health clinic. The baby had been coughing for days, and the medicine the doctor prescribed cost more than Grace earned in a whole week. "She needs antibiotics immediately," the female doctor said firmly. "Bronchitis can become serious if not treated in time." Grace looked at the prescription, her heart tightening. $80, an amount that meant selling empanadas nonstop for 2 weeks, but by then it would be too late. "Is there anything cheaper, doctor?" Her voice trembled. "I'm sorry, this is the required medication." Leaving the clinic, tears welled in her eyes as she listened to Lily's weak cough. "Baby, Mommy will find the money, I promise." On the bus ride home, her phone rang. "Hello, is this Miss Miller? I'm Amanda, assistant to Mr. Ethan Walker. He would like to invite you to discuss a job." A job?" Grace asked, confused. "Please come to Walker Holdings' office in Seattle tomorrow at 10 a.m. Grace looked at Lily coughing in her arms, then answered, "Yes, I'll be there." Walker Holdings occupied 3 floors of a towering glass building. Grace felt small, wearing her only decent dress and a pair of worn-out shoes. "Mr. Walker is expecting you," Carmen greeted her with a polite smile. Ethan rose as she walked in. Dressed in a crisp suit, hair neatly combed, yet his eyes still carried the sorrow she had seen that rainy day. "Thank you for coming. How's Lily?" he asked, surprising her. "She has bronchitis. I don't have enough money for the medicine," she admitted, her voice breaking. Ethan felt a sharp ache in his chest. This woman had helped his son without hesitation, and now she was struggling alone to save her own child. "Grace, I want to offer you a job. Noah hasn't stopped talking about you since that day. I need someone to look after him in the afternoons, someone he trusts." "Why me? You could hire any professional nanny?" "Because in just 5 minutes, my son laughed more than he has in the past 5 years with me." The room fell silent. Grace looked out the window where the city stretched endlessly, a world far from her own. "How much is the pay?" she asked. $2,000 a month, part-time, and the company will cover Lily's medical insurance." It was 3 times her income from selling empanadas, but her pride pushed back. "That's too much for just a few hours of childcare." "It's not just childcare, it's helping my son trust and smile again. That's priceless." Grace looked into his eyes and saw a sincerity that both moved and frightened her. "What if Noah gets tired of me?" "That won't happen. He already sees you as family." "I would never hurt a child," she said, a hint of pride in her tone. "I know. That's why you're here." Grace thought of Lily's cough, the unpaid bills, the sleepless nights. "I'll do it, but on one condition. I still get to sell empanadas on weekends." Ethan smiled for the first time in weeks. "Of course. When can you start?" "Tomorrow, but first I need to take Lily to the doctor." "Carmen will take care of that today," Ethan said, and as she reached the door, he added, "Thank you for giving me and my son a chance." On her first afternoon working at Ethan's home, Grace stood before the tall iron gates by Lake Washington, feeling as though she were stepping into another world. The house rose behind a perfectly manicured garden, its glass facade reflecting the sunset. Lily lay quietly in her stroller, wide-eyed at all the new sights. Noah came running out to greet her, his grin so bright it caught Grace off guard. "Miss Grace, you have to see my new model airplane." "Let me put Lily inside first," Grace laughed. Inside, the house was spacious, but not as cold as she had imagined. Family photos lined the walls, most of them of a younger Noah, with a blonde woman Grace guessed was his mother. In those photos, the boy's eyes were far more carefree than they were now. In the days that followed, a new rhythm began to take shape. Grace picked Noah up at the school gates, and they talked on the way home. He told her about his favorite science class, the neighbor's dog, and sometimes about his mom. Afternoons were spent with Grace helping Noah with homework. Lily played on a soft mat nearby, occasionally handed a toy by Noah. Every time he smiled at Lily, it felt like the whole house lit up. One evening, Grace made chicken soup, a dish she often cooked on rainy days. When she set the steaming bowl on the table, Noah stared at it and murmured, "This smell? It's like I've smelled it before. It's warm." He ate 2 full bowls, declaring, "Better than pizza." From then on, Noah began asking Grace about other dishes. They baked cookies together, made bread, and he taught her to play his favorite video game. Ethan also began appearing earlier in the evenings. At first, he claimed it was to check on Noah's schoolwork, but Grace noticed he often stayed longer, ate with them, and sometimes helped Noah with his math homework. Those moments made the house feel less hollow. One rainy afternoon, Noah pulled out colored paper and asked, "Do you know how to make origami?" Grace smiled. "I can make paper cranes. Want to learn?" They sat around the kitchen table, Lily sleeping soundly in her stroller. Noah folded each crease carefully, his eyes lighting up as the crane took shape. "I'm going to give one to Dad, one to you, and one to Lily." Ethan walked in just as Noah handed him the paper crane. He held it for a long moment, then smiled at Grace. No words were needed. She understood he was grateful for something she had brought back into their lives. In the weeks that followed, Ethan came home early almost every night. At first, Grace thought it was just coincidence, but soon she realized he always had a reason. Had less work today. Wanted to have dinner at home, or wanted to see how Noah's homework is going. That evening after dinner, Grace was tidying up the kitchen as usual. She was at the sink washing dishes when Ethan walked in, holding a towel. "Let me help," he said, his tone casual, but his eyes carrying something different. "That's not necessary. This is my job," Grace replied, trying to keep some distance. "No, Grace, we eat dinner together. We should clean up together, too." They worked in silence for a while, but to Grace that silence made her all too aware of her own heartbeat. His hand brushed lightly against hers now and then as he took a plate she had just washed. "Grace," Ethan said at last, his voice lower. "Yes?" "I want you to know, Noah has changed so much since you came. He smiles more, does better in school. And I feel different too." Grace looked up, her eyes meeting the deep gaze in his. She quickly turned away, unwilling to let her feelings show too clearly. "He just needed someone to listen," she said softly. "And I need that too," Ethan replied, making Grace pause for a moment. Silence fell again, but this time it felt warmer. As she was about to leave the kitchen, he asked quietly, "Grace, why don't you have someone? A woman like you, surely?" Grace gave a faint smile. "Men where I'm from don't want women with kids from someone else, and I have Lily to care for. No time to think about love." Ethan pressed his lips together. "If anyone walked away from someone like you, he's a fool." The words made something stir inside Grace, but her mind reminded her, this was his world, wealthy, pressured, with rules she didn't belong to. She smiled, thanked him, then picked up Lily and headed to the living room, leaving Ethan standing in the kitchen, watching her go with a long, thoughtful gaze. That night, Ethan lay restless in bed. He couldn't deny his feelings for her. It wasn't just gratitude anymore, but between them lay a vast gulf of status, and he feared that his world might hurt her. The next day, a call from Anna, mother of Victoria, his late wife, only deepened Ethan Walker's worry. "Ethan, I've heard some troubling things about someone working in your home. She's there far too often. Noah is becoming too attached to her. He's Victoria's only child. You cannot allow some opportunist to take advantage." "Grace is not that kind of person," Ethan said firmly. "You're even calling her by name?" "Ethan, don't be naive. If you don't end this, my family will take legal action to protect Noah." Ethan knew it wasn't an empty threat. That afternoon, when he came home and saw Grace and Noah laughing together at the study table with little Lily crawling on the floor, a sharp pain gripped his chest. How could he possibly choose between protecting her and protecting his son? But deep down, he knew he loved her. The following evening, Ethan invited Grace out for dinner, saying he wanted to thank her for everything she had done for Noah. They chose an elegant Italian restaurant in downtown Seattle, where warm golden lights reflected off crisp white tablecloths. Grace felt uneasy, not because the place was unfamiliar, but because of the way Ethan had been looking at her in recent days. Deeper, longer, carrying something she wasn't ready to name. When the appetizers arrived, Ethan placed his hand on the table, his voice low and warm. "Grace, since you came, Noah has changed, but it's not just him. I have too. You've brought warmth into this house that I thought I had lost forever." Grace's heart beat faster. He continued, "It's not just gratitude. I think He never finished. The restaurant doors swung open, and a tall blonde woman in an elegant evening gown walked in. Her smile was cold, her gaze sweeping the room until it landed on their table. Ethan shot to his feet, his face paling as if he'd seen a ghost. "Victoria?" His voice was so faint Grace had to lean in to hear. Grace froze. The name wasn't unfamiliar. It was the name of Ethan's late wife Noah had spoken about. But she... Dead? Yes, that was the plan, Victoria said with a mocking smile. But plans change. She pulled out a chair and sat at their table without waiting for an invitation. Grace looked at Ethan and saw shock and pain in his eyes. You disappeared for 5 years. Both your son and I thought you were dead, Ethan said, his voice tight. I just needed time. Paris, then London. I wanted the life I dreamed of. Grace clenched her hands under the table. Clearly, this woman felt no remorse. Victoria turned to Grace, her gaze sharp. And you must be the nanny I've heard about. Impressive. He never brought anyone to places like this. Heat rushed to Grace's face. I'm not... You don't have to speak, Victoria cut in. I just want one thing clear. I am Ethan's legal wife and Noah's mother. Ethan's jaw tightened. Victoria, you abandoned your son, your family. What else is there to say? Oh, there's more. I want to come back. We will be a family again, as we should be. And if you refuse, I will do whatever it takes to get custody of Noah. The threat landed like a block of ice. Grace looked at Ethan and saw his shoulders tremble slightly. She stood, her heart twisting painfully. I need to go. Ethan reached out, gripping her wrist, his voice urgent. Grace, let me explain. Explain what? That you still have a legal wife? That I'm just the one in the middle? Grace's voice cracked. She tore her hand away and walked quickly out of the restaurant, the golden light fading behind her. Outside, the cold rain hit her like needles, blurring the streetlights. Ethan's voice chased after her, but the storm swallowed it whole. Grace, wait! Ethan ran after her, calling out, Please, let me explain. Explain what? That you have a wife? That you've been lying to me all this time? She shouted, tears streaming down her face. No, it's not what you think. Victoria is dead, or at least that's what I believed. There was an accident, and I attended her funeral. But she's sitting in there, alive and well. Grace's voice rose to almost a scream. You can't possibly expect me to believe anything you say. I swear, I don't understand this either. She couldn't be alive. And yet, here she is. No matter what, I was a fool to think that a man like you could love a woman like me, she choked out, waving down a taxi. This is over. I will not be anyone's mistress. You're not a mistress. You're the love of my life, Ethan cried out, but the taxi had already driven away. He returned to the restaurant and found Victoria sipping a glass of red wine. So she left? Victoria smirked. Beautiful. I can see why you were drawn to her. What do you want, Victoria? Why fake your death? Where have you been for the past 5 years? Mostly in Paris, a few months in London, living the life I always wanted. But when I saw a picture of you and her in a magazine, I knew I had to come back. That sort of thing isn't good for your public image. I don't care about my image, Ethan said coldly. You should care, and you should care about Noah too. He's my son. You abandoned Noah when you faked your death. You no longer have the right to call yourself his mother, Ethan said through clenched teeth. That was a mistake. But now I want to fix it, Victoria said, her voice laced with calculation. I want our family back the way it was. There is no family to go back to. Noah and I have moved on, with Grace. You know that won't last, Victoria said, standing up, her tone icy. I'm still your legal wife and Noah's legal mother. If you don't end things with her, my parents will use the law to protect their grandson from the influence of unsuitable people. Ethan understood exactly what that meant. They would fight for custody of Noah. That night, when Ethan got home, Noah ran up to him. Dad, where's Grace? She said she'd do homework with me. Grace won't be coming anymore, son. Ethan knelt down, feeling his heart shatter. Why? Did she do something wrong? No, she didn't do anything wrong. It's just complicated. "Is it because Mom came back?" Noah asked bluntly. Ethan froze. "You already know?" "She's in the kitchen. She says she's my mom, but I don't remember her, and she told me Grace isn't coming back." Ethan rushed into the kitchen. Victoria was pouring herself coffee as if she owned the place. "What did you tell him?" "The truth, that I'm his mother, and I've come back." "You're not his mother. Mothers don't abandon their children and fake their deaths to run off with a lover." "I will protect Noah from her," Victoria said, her eyes cold. The rain that night felt endless. Grace returned to her small apartment, Lily asleep on her shoulder, but her mind in chaos. The image of Ethan's eyes in the restaurant, pained, powerless, haunted her. But the more she thought about it, the more she felt an unbridgeable gap. He had a past that wasn't closed, and it had just come back to reclaim its place. The next day, Ethan called many times. Grace watched the phone light up but didn't answer. She knew that if she heard his voice, she would weaken, and she couldn't let herself be the other woman in a family that wasn't resolved. A week passed. Noah no longer saw Grace waiting at the school gates. He asked his father, but Ethan only said briefly, "She won't be coming anymore." In the lakefront house, Ethan sat alone on the sofa, his glass of wine untouched. Victoria had begun appearing more often, always smiling as if everything had returned to normal. But Noah avoided her, locking himself in his room for hours. That night, Ethan opened the door to his son's dimly lit room. The faint sound of rain tapped against the window. Noah lay facing the wall, his small shoulders trembling, his voice choked. "Dad, why isn't Miss Grace coming back? Did she do something wrong?" "No, Noah, she didn't do anything wrong." "Then why? Is it because Mom came back?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He simply sat on the edge of the bed and placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "There are things adults have to do to protect you." "But I don't need protecting from Miss Grace," Noah whispered, then pulled the blanket over his head. Ethan left the room, feeling as though a deep hole had been carved into his chest. He knew he had just let go of the best thing that had happened to both of them, and that it might be the biggest mistake of his life. 3 months had passed since that stormy night at the restaurant. Grace returned to selling empanadas, managing to open a small stall thanks to the savings she had earned while working for Ethan. Lily had learned to crawl, bringing her joy, but at night the longing for Ethan and Noah gnawed at her heart. One afternoon, as Grace was wiping down a table, a middle-aged woman in a gray coat walked in. She stopped in front of her. "You're Grace Miller?" "Yes, and you are?" "I'm Amanda, assistant to Mr. Ethan Walker." Grace tightened her grip on the rag. "Did he send you here?" "No, he doesn't know I'm here. I'm doing this for Noah." Amanda quickly explained. Since Grace left, Noah had hardly eaten properly, often woke up in the middle of the night, his grades had dropped, and he'd gotten into fights at school. "Victoria, she doesn't care about the boy. Most of the time, she's at parties and social events. Noah says she looks at him like he's a stranger." Grace bit her lip, her chest tightening. "And why are you telling me this?" "Because the boy needs you, and Ethan does too, even if he won't admit it. But there's something you should know. Victoria didn't come back for love or family. She came back because she's out of money." Amanda lowered her voice. 5 years ago, Victoria left with a French tennis instructor. They planned to start a new life in Europe without divorcing, to avoid splitting assets. When he abandoned her, her family also lost a fortune in bad investments. Now they want to use Noah to force Ethan back, or they'll sue for custody. Grace felt her blood boil. "They've said I'm a danger to Noah, haven't they?" Amanda nodded. "But I've worked with Ethan for years, and I know he loves you. He just thinks leaving you was the only way to protect his son." That night, Grace lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the darkness heavy around her. She remembered the way Noah's eyes lit up while making origami, the warmth of his small arms wrapping around her, on those sad afternoons. And she knew that if she did nothing, the boy would keep living in that cold house. The next morning, Grace arrived at Ethan's gate. Noah was sitting alone on the steps, turning a basketball in his hands. When he saw her, he shot up. "Miss Grace, I knew you'd come back," he shouted, running into her arms. "I missed you so much, Noah." "Stay here forever, okay? Mom? That mom doesn't play with me. Dad's always at work." Before Grace could reply, Victoria's voice cut through the air. "What's this? Who let you into my house?" Noah stepped in front of Grace. "She's my real mom." Victoria let out a short, mocking laugh. "I am your mother, Noah." "No, you left me. You only came back when you wanted to. Miss Grace was here when I needed her. She loves me for real." The back door opened and Ethan stepped in, taking in the scene before him, his eyes holding a resolve Grace had never seen before. Ethan stopped in the doorway, his eyes moving across each face. Victoria with her cold smile, Noah standing protectively in front of Grace, and Grace holding Lily tightly, ready to leave at any moment. "What's going on here?" His voice was low and taut, like a wire ready to snap. Victoria crossed her arms. "She broke into the house and is filling your son's head with nonsense." "That's not true," Noah nearly shouted. "I invited Miss Grace. This is her home, too." Ethan closed his eyes for a second. "Noah," he began, but the boy cut him off. "Dad, you love Miss Grace. I know it. And she loves you. I love you both. So why can't we be a family?" The room froze. Victoria burst out laughing, sharp as breaking glass. "A family? Ethan, do you remember that I'm still your legal wife? And that I'm Noah's mother?" Noah spun around. "Mother? You left me. You only came back when you wanted to, never when I needed you." Victoria took a small step back at the anger in her son's eyes. "I did it because you think about yourself," Noah said loudly. "Miss Grace was there when I was sick, when I was sad. She's my real mom." Grace held Lily tighter, feeling her heart race. Ethan stepped forward, his voice turning cold. "Victoria, I think it's time to tell the truth. The truth about Paris, the tennis instructor, and why you really came back." Victoria's face paled. "What are you talking about?" "I know everything. You faked your death to run away with a lover, then came back when he left you, and your family lost their money. Now you want to use Noah to force me back." Victoria tried to regain her composure. "That doesn't change the fact that I'm your legal wife." "No, the fact is that when you faked your death, our marriage ended. And I'm not coming back," Ethan said firmly. Victoria narrowed her eyes. "Then I'll sue for custody of Noah. I have family, money, lawyers." "Go ahead," Ethan said, stepping forward and taking Grace's hand. "But this time, I won't stay silent. Everyone will know the truth about you." For a rare moment, Victoria actually looked afraid. She glanced at Noah, then turned and walked out of the house without another word. Silence filled the room. Noah looked at his father, then at Grace. "Does that mean Miss Grace can stay?" Ethan turned to Grace, his eyes asking, "Can you forgive me?" Grace looked at Noah, seeing the same bright eyes she had first seen in the rain. She nodded softly. "I'll stay, if this is where everyone wants me to be." Noah cheered and threw his arms around them both. Ethan held them close, feeling their heartbeats against his own. And in that moment, the vast house no longer felt like empty walls. It was warm, alive, truly a home. 5 years had passed since that afternoon in the kitchen, when Noah had boldly declared that Grace was his real mother. 5 years since the day Ethan chose love over fear, and Grace decided to fight for their family. Morning sunlight poured through the windows of a cozy little house in the suburbs of Seattle. Laughter rang from the kitchen, where Noah, now 17 and almost as tall as his father, held a letter with a bright grin. "Miss Grace! Dad! I got into the University of Washington," he nearly shouted. Grace, now Grace Walker, turned from the stove where she was frying eggs and wrapped him in a hug. No, Mom is so proud of you, Noah laughed, hugging her tightly. It's because you and Dad believed in me. That's why I made it. Lily, now 5, ran in and wrapped herself around Noah's leg. Noah's the smartest. Ethan walked in, set the newspaper on the table, and pulled both kids into his arms. I knew you'd do it. You're going to do great things. Ethan's business was still thriving, but now he spent far more time with his family. A portion of the company's profits went to a fund for single mothers, an idea Grace had started. She also ran a nonprofit of her own, helping women in difficult circumstances find work and support their children. Breakfast that morning had a familiar guest, Amanda, who remained part of the family. She set a basket of pastries on the table and smiled. I just heard from Paris. Victoria's remarried, this time to a French businessman. Grace smiled softly. I hope she's happy. Ethan shook his head at his wife. You're always too kind. After breakfast, while Noah and Lily played in the yard, Ethan and Grace sat together on the wooden porch swing. He held her hand, watching the two children. Do you remember that rainy afternoon when you gave Noah your jacket? How could I forget? That night changed everything. Grace rested her head on his shoulder. Fate brought us together, but maybe it was also thanks to a very special boy. They looked out at the garden, where Noah was patiently teaching Lily how to fold a paper crane, just as Grace had taught him many years ago. Look at that, Ethan smiled. Our older son teaching our younger one. It's perfect. Our children are both perfect, Grace replied, her hand resting on the slight curve of her belly. Ethan's eyes lit up. You, 2 months already? She smiled. I wanted to be sure before telling you. Ethan kissed her gently, and though they had been married for 5 years, he whispered, I love you, Grace Walker. I love you too, Ethan Walker. From the garden, Noah looked up and saw them, a smile spreading across his face. The sound of his and Lily's laughter drifted through the air, twining with the gentle breeze on the porch, wrapping the house in a blanket of peace. That little house wasn't as grand as the old mansion, but it was warmer and fuller than anything Ethan had ever known. In their hearts, they all knew. One rainy afternoon in Seattle had brought them together, and from that moment on, they had been a family forever.